Attack on Titan isn't a series that has garnered its world-dominating fame and popularity through its character writing. It's actually a part of the series that many have criticized since its introduction in 2013. But since I've come into the anime scene as just a wee lad back in 2019, and I first watched Attack on Titan, there was one character that was drawn to me. With a level of responsibility that he carried on his shoulders, a always march forward attitude that's usually saved for shonen protagonists, and a revealing story that caused me to empathize and relate to him unlike any other character in the series previous. That character I want to talk about today is Reiner, one of the most relatable characters in anime. Now, we all know that Attack on Titan in its storytelling is kind of told in a story of two halves, with the first half, or the first part of the story in my opinion, being told from the complete perspective of Eren and the island of Paradise, as we follow this tag team and these young kids in their journey to become saviors of Paradise Island and basically Titan Slayers, and also partially shifting into Titans themselves. But around chapter 100, and maybe even before it, like chapter 90, the perception flips to a perception of the outside world, specifically the land of Marley. And leading this new perspective for the rest of the series is what I like to call our new protagonist, Reiner. Reiner's a character that was always in Attack on Titan, even from the very beginning of the series, but more so in a big brother role to the rest of the cast members, as he was always the character that kind of did everything to the T. He was the model soldier. He was the person that Eren looked up to the most in the story, and he was someone that a lot of soldiers at the time were molding their work off of in preparation for becoming one of the scouts and just becoming a savior of Paradise. At the time, we had no idea of the later revelations of the story, of course the turning point with Reiner's character, and just Reiner's backstory in particular. But one thing that we did know was that Reiner was someone who always carried a level of responsibility. Reiner knew that people looked up to him. Reiner knew that he was this guy that always seemed to maintain level-headed in times of severe crisis. He stayed calm in very important situations in which the rest of our characters that we're following would lose their complete and utter shit. But little did we know, and what we would later find out, is that all of this was a facade for who he truly was. In season 2, during the Armored Titan and the Colossal Titans reveal, we not only get a look into Reiner's character and his past and his backstory and just who he's been up until all this time, but we also get to see Reiner's vulnerable, broken mind as it splits in two for all to display in the series. At this point in the story, Reiner is at a crossroads. He doesn't necessarily know who he is anymore. He has an identity crisis with two different versions of himself that both are true in their own respects. You have the version of Reiner that first invaded Paradise Island and first became the Armored Titan for the goal of destroying Paradise and or collecting the powers of the founding Titan. This doesn't change, as Reiner still has this personality, a part of him which leads to the reveal, which leads to the fracturing of his personality when he realizes that he has spent so long masquerading himself among the same people that he was supposed to kill. You see, during Reiner's time on Paradise Island, as his mission began all the way back when him, Baritone, and Annie were all just literal children, he became accustomed to the ways of people on Paradise Island, and he saw firsthand how they were really no different from anybody else that he had ever encountered, with the exception of Eren, of course, turning into a Titan, which even then wasn't something new for Reiner, as he himself shared that same ability all along, ever since coming to Paradise. But even from this point on in the series, getting exposed to some of his fracturing mindset, his past, of course, and the secret that he's held for 2.5 seasons up until this point, we don't really get to spend too much time with Reiner after this until season 4, in which the lens for the series of Attack on Titan truly flips around and we get to see the full extent of Reiner's character and also his goals. At this point in the series, with season 4 on the horizon, we learn about the state of Marley, the abandonment of Reiner at such a young age due to matters outside of his own control, with them still being Eldians in Marley after all, and even lesser known matters that fabricated to create a millennia of discrimination and hatred towards Reiner and everyone else that he's ever loved and honestly cared about. Through all of this exposition, through all of his backstory, we get insight to Reiner's constant failure, being the worst soldier in his generation and being on a path to live a life of complete meaningless for honorary Marleyan. As he looks around, he realizes that he's continuously being less and being held to a lesser standard and still coming short of that lesser standard than all of those around him. Not being the soldier that Colt was, and growing further mad at himself at every situation, at all turns, realizing just how truly average he really was in a world that already looked down upon who he was at his very core. With his situation growing worse every single day, living in a country where every single person that isn't like you hates you for who you are, Reiner turned towards the innocent naivete of a child, just wanting to achieve greatness in a world that he has always been painfully average in, going day to day, not really destined for anything. Not only did Reiner grow up in a situation to where every single person around him that wasn't in the same predicament that he was truly hated who he was, with reasons that were explained to Reiner from birth, propagated and put on full display, put in history books year after year, and drilled into this kid's mind that he not only has to start from the bottom of society, but also he potentially has to sacrifice his future, the rest of his life, to just meet a modicum of success or expectations within that same society that hated him. But going back to the present day in season 4, after the return to Marley and his homeland, Reiner realizes throughout this entire journey, in which originally Reiner wasn't even supposed to take part in, a Titan that Reiner wasn't even initially destined to have, in a situation that no one would have expected him to be in, he ended up being the only survivor. Out of all of his friends, out of all the people that he could possibly relate to for being put in the same situation as he did, they all fell one by one, sacrificing themselves for his safety. The kid who messed everything up on the way going there, the person who wasn't even supposed to be in this situation to begin with, the average kid found himself being the only one who was able to keep marching forward because everyone else jumped in front of him to save the day. This stuck with Reiner, and as his days continued to go by and Marley came to the slow realization that one day Eren would confront him. Eren would come and see the rest of the world wage war upon them, and he'd have to step up and keep fighting once again. But at this point, as the torment that he had suffered over the years of his splitting personality, the punishment that he endured from all of his friends and loved ones either being lost in the time that he spent over at Marley or just sacrificing themselves for his safety, after dealing with all the betrayal and the split feelings that he truly had about the people who he encountered and truly befriended over the years that he spent in Paradis, he hated himself. He hated himself for being who he was, for being someone who achieved this selfish greatness that only kids would go after. But here he was returning home years later with several thousand deaths on his hands. Friend, foe, innocent, guilty, stranger, loved one on his hands. And at this point, he wondered why to continue to go on. He truly wanted to take the life away from him that he didn't feel like he deserved to begin with. With every single talk with his parents, with every single moment that he spent back in Marley, he was reminded of his misplacement in this entire predicament, with Reiner being the weakest link of them all. Because of Reiner's personal goal of wanting to become an honorary Marleyan and become the hero of Marley, become a symbol for all Eldians in Marley trying to prove people wrong, he was also painted and easily manipulated to be a tragic hero who in the end didn't want to live anymore. Imagine from birth you were raised with the ideology that you yourself simply existing and all the people like you existing are the sole reason for all death, all suffering, in the current cycle of inequality in your own country and world, and then imagine you go along with it. Imagine that you accept that you are part of this problem which needs to be solved through the eradication of your own kind. And even through this process, you are the only one of your kind who survives to a certain point. You've spent years learning about the depths of what your race has truly done or truly hasn't done. Or maybe you just witnessed what the people like you are capable of doing, but no, you must continue to move forward, to press on, to correct the mistakes of your ancestors, to make the people you know as happy as they can be, to fit into a society in which this childish dream that you held on to can be achieved, to achieve some semblance of acceptance for you and your family. And so you keep pushing forward to the point of no return, breaking your own mind and realizing it's all because of you. You were the reason, you were the catalyst for all the loss, all the destruction, all of the death, all of the betrayal that has happened over the past several years. And you were solely responsible for creating the world's monster in which you now have to face again. All of the friends that died, all of the people that are now angry at another half of the world, an entire situation that is now in favor of your enemy, and an entire society which is now flipped on its head, is solely because of your actions driven by selfishness and manipulation of the self. Reiner's character is the perfect example of the impact of what lives can do on a people, on a society, and on a specific person who can be easily manipulated due to their own personality and their own goals at hand. And it also shows the strength of a mission, the importance of pushing forward, and how deep the depths of depravity can go for those who are determined to accomplish their goal on a mission on a battlefield full of children. I know a lot of people may have watched this video and come to the conclusion that Reiner's life has been horrible. We all knew it watching season 4, and we all know it reading the manga, because it only gets worse from here as he continues to lose. He continues to lose his sanity. He continues to lose his will to live. I won't spoil, but let's just say things do progress in the story to an extent. Reiner is a character that I think is, like I said, an example of the impact of misinformation and lies, and just the importance of history within a society. Because to an extent, I think that we can all relate to the idea of being lied to, the idea of being driven by those who have more information than you, the idea of being a tool, the idea of being a ploy in someone else's grander plan, as opposed to truly making the decisions at head for yourself. And because of these expectations, or because of this just blatant control over your life and your goals and what you do, you break. Whether it's your personality, whether it's your character, whether it's just your will to continue to move on. But for some reason, a lot of us continue to blindly walk forward. I think that there are a lot of times in society when there are stronger forces at play that go behind the decisions that we make, the actions that we take, and the things that we do on just a day-to-day basis. Not everything that you do is by your own free will or free choice as much as you want to believe it is. A lot of it is impacted by the influences that creep into your life on a day-to-day basis. And it's up to us to make sure that we aren't driven to a point of madness, destruction, and perpetuating those lies that are told to us. This character is a little bit far off from what I plan to do for the rest of this series, as next video won't actually be on the anime and manga character at all, but also will be much more relatable to the average person rather than just a vague concept that I think a lot of us can understand and get behind. Also, as this video is dropping, hopefully the first episode of the podcast that I have come together with my friends to create, the Loud and Wrong podcast, will officially have our first episode on the YouTube channel that was streamed on Saturday, and also later this week or next Saturday. I will personally be streaming on this channel, on this YouTube channel itself, playing a game and just kind of talking to whoever's there. I want to talk about a lot of the topics that I would talk about on quick videos, but instead just talking to you guys live. If you guys want to play a game, I can see about downloading it, but for the most part, I'm just going to be going through RPGs that I really want to play, like Persona 4 Golden or KOTOR, or Mass Effect potentially, or Hellblade, and we'll just talk. It'll be a nice chill stream, and hopefully you guys swing through. I love Reiner. He's actually my favorite character in AOT. I find him relatable. I hope that some of you guys do as well. But that's basically it from me today. If you enjoyed this video, leave it a like, subscribe. Thank you to anyone who's come this far. I doubt it's many of you, if any of you. And I'll see you guys later. Have a good day, and peace.